Okay, so good morning everyone. I hope everybody is fine and doing good. Yesterday I already posted lesson 2 in our subject in module 1, and that is because it is my assumption that we are through or you are done reading lesson number 1. So the purpose of this video is for me to wrap up our lesson in lesson 1 so that you will be prepared in proceeding to lesson 2. Okay, so if you remember, there are 3 objectives that we are expected to meet in lesson 1. Number 1, you are supposed to define social studies. So how are you going to define social studies? Number 2, explain the aim of social studies relative to our behavior as members of the society. And number 3, illustrate the relevance and importance of social studies to our present world. So, how are we going to define social studies? It is here. Social studies is the study of people in relation to each other and to their world. It is an issues focused and injury-based interdisciplinary subject that draws upon history, geography, ecology, economics, law, philosophy, political science, and other social science discipline. This is according to Alberta in Education in 2005. So when we speak of social studies, it is a study of people in relation to each other and to their world. It is a study about people in the context of their world. Now remember that this subject is foundation of social studies. So when we speak of foundation, you have that in your discussions in our FB group and in our GC, that when we speak of foundation, it is the basis, the base. Ang usa ka building nga taas, maglisod na sa og baro kung huyang ang isang pundasyon. Magkataas ang building, magkalawom po ang isang pundasyon. Mabita na sa atong activity, among gipatan-aw sa mga poste sa inyong mga bahay. Tungod kay kung inyong tan-awon ang poste sa atong bahay, sa atong mga bahay, kung kahoy magali ng poste, sa ilawom ana na ay simento nga gikubkob dito sa ilawom sa juta para mo barog ang maong poste. So without the foundation, dili mo barog ang poste. So inana nga analogy atong gi-apply diri sa social studies, nga kanida ay atong kurso, this course is supposed to provide us, to lay down in us the foundation of social studies, so that pohon kung magtudlo na mo, as social science teachers, you know precisely why you are going to teach social studies. Unsa man ay katujuan sa social studies, nganong naamang nga subject na social studies, So dinhi sa foundation of social studies, dapat ato na nang makatunan, ato nang it is already clear in our mind what is social studies. Okay, so social studies is the study of people in relation to each other and to their world. So nganong ato maistudyohan ang mga tao related o uban, dili pwedeng imong i-separate kung dili uban siya sa isang environment. Tungod kay dunay dakong kalabutan ang behavior sa usa ka tawo diha sa isang katilingban, ang usa ka tawo, ang isang panabot, ang isang panglantaw sa kalibutan, ang isang mga behavior is greatly influenced by his environment. That is why in social studies, it is a holistic study of human person in relation to his environment. Okay. So it is a science, no? This study is scientific because social studies is not just based on hearsays, mga kuno-kuno ug mga istorya nga way resibo. Rather, social studies is a scientific study about human behavior. There are specific steps and procedures in the conduct of the study so that we are able to reach or to arrive at certain understanding. Okay. Under sa social studies, mo ng mga geography, history, ecology, economics, etc., etc. So, when you will be asked about what is social studies, so you will simply say it is the study of people in relation to each other and to their world. Ang pag-estudyo, ang pagtuon sa usa ka tawo uban sa ilang isig ka tawo o sa ilang kalibutan nga ilang gipuy-an. So objective number 2, explain the aim of social studies relative to our behavior as members of the society. So, diha sa objective number 2, itagaan mo og higajon pag-explain unsa man daay ka importante ang social studies diha sa behavior, diha sa kinaiza sa usa ka tawo, diha sa iyang kalibutan o sa katilingban nga iyang gipuy-an. So dinhi natagiingon, social studies aim the student to gain enough knowledge and competency to actively participate in the nation and the world. Okay. So, kung magtudlo daay ka og social studies, naa sa imong hunahuna, no? Isip magtutudlo, isip teacher, when you prepare the lesson, no? A social studies lesson specifically, dapat na nasa imong hunahuna ang katudyoan ngano nga imo ring gitudlo kini maong specific nga lesson. And most often, kanunay imong ibutang sa imong hunahuna o kasing-kasing na sa imong pagtudlo. When you teach social studies, it should enable the students to develop themselves so that they can actively participate in the nation building. No? Maunay katudyoan sa social studies, ijang umulon ang hunahuna o kinaidya sa mga estudyante so that when they get out of the classroom, no, when they are faced with the reality of life, then they can fully understand ngano ning mga butangan ng hitabo ug unsa man kay ilang ikatabang, what can they contribute in order to improve the situation in the society, in their community. Okay? So, when you teach social studies to your students, always put in your mind that the primary aim in teaching them is to change their lives, to change their behavior, to change their perspectives. No? Atong usbon ang kinaidya sa mga estudyante aron mamahimo silang productive and active members of the society. No, muna problema, no. This is a misconception that we have about social studies, because before we only think that social studies is about events. Social studies is about people, about dates, and we have to memorize them all. No, daily when we study social studies or when we teach social studies, our aim is for the students to learn, and in that learning and through that learning they are going to change their behavior, not on the negative but to become better persons so that they can contribute in the nation building. No? Mauna ang katudyoan sa social studies, pag-umol sa hunahuna o behavior sa mga bata, sa mga estudyante, so that they can become active and productive members of the society. And this is our challenge as social studies teachers, no? Siguro, if you are teaching Filipino, your aim is for your students to be able to speak Filipino. If you are an English teacher, your primary aim is for your students to be able to speak English. If you are teaching in mathematics, then your primary aim is for your students to be able to compute and solve mathematical problems. So in the context of social studies, that is also our challenge. That when the students are done studying social study or social studies, then ang pinaka-output, ang konkreto nga ebidensya, nakakaton ba ang mga estudyante sa imong leksyon is when you are able to see them apply what they have learned inside the classroom in their community. No? Gigamit ba sa mga estudyante ang ilang nakatunan diha sa sud sa classroom, ila ba ka nang gigamit ngadto sa katilingban? Because that is the ultimate proof that you are or you have been effective as a social studies teacher. Okay, so sa objective number 3, iyon dire, illustrate the relevance and importance of social studies to our present world. So dinhi atong ipakita kung importante ba ang social studies, relevant ba ang social studies sa present world. No, di ba kayon nga na? Perhaps social studies is relevant before, but now no more. Come on, do you think social studies is still relevant and important today? Okay, so for me, it is important and relevant today and even in the future. Why? Because if we will go back to objective number 1 and objective number 2, now in our lesson, it is said that the main purpose of social studies is to mold and develop the minds and the behavior of young men and women so that they become productive and active members of the society. So for me, so long as there is society and as long as there are young men and women who need to be trained, who need to be formed, then social studies is important and relevant. No? Nga, samtang gagmay pa ang mga bata, no? Samtang trainable pa ang mga bata, we social studies teachers, it is our utmost responsibility and obligation that these students will be trained and they will become responsible members of the society. So hopefully, kamo pohon, when you become teachers handling social studies or social science subjects, you have this utmost obligation and responsibility. Injo ng kaakuhan, injo ng responsibilidad to make sure that your students, no, are able to develop themselves into responsible citizens of the country. It is not enough. You should not be satisfied when your students are able to memorize the dates, when your students are able to recite, enumerate the names of important people and events. Dili na mo isugdanan kung ang estudyante nakakatun ba sa imong klase, no? Sa akong gi-mention ganiha, the ultimate evidence that your students have learned in your lesson, they have learned from you, is when they are able to improve their behaviors, when they are able to become good members of the society. Precisely, that is the purpose of social studies. And for that, even today and even in the future, social studies will always be considered important and relevant. So I hope you have learned many things. You have realized many things in our first lesson for Module 1. So as we proceed to Module 2, we can have a deeper understanding about social studies. Remember, we are in developing, in molding the foundation of social studies. Okay? Thank you and good day.